Very interesting and reachful panel in terms of experience. So let's get it started with a question to Mr. Navanita. First, for you as a, I would say, leader in a B2B company, fintech company, what is your experience and how do you make sure that your DevSecOps do handle API security today? And specifically when it comes to APIs that are exposed to third-party vendors.
Oh, amazing. Thanks, Lauren. Thank you so much for having me here. Thank you, Quantic team, for setting up a great leadership team and having the wonderful conversation. So coming to the the question, just what you to have it. This is most of the organization faces, right? Who are all the B2B and B2C? The most instead of B2B, B2C face a lot of the challenges, because morning 9:30 to 10:30 it's a peak loads of the traffic which will hit into the infrastructure, where we want to ensure that in terms of scaling up. At the same time, we want to ensure that everything is secured enough to provide the services. So it's both the things in terms of operational excellence, in terms of security excellence, where we need to have a balancing of both the stuff. And the second point is, moreover, it is so dynamic, right? In terms of the infrastructure, it's not like earlier. If you want to set up servers where it's like where we are waiting for 1 month to get the servers from Singapore and then get it installed and does all the configuration. It's like 20 years back that was the situation. Now it has absolutely changed. A few seconds before I can make the server up and then server down, and I can open the the sport whatever things it's what it is required for this business requirement. So the dynamics also so changing, and overall environment is also so dynamics where we couldn't predict what is live in few minutes before and then now it is the same or it's different. So the scaling one, at the same time, at the scale, we wanted to ensure that how it has been secure enough. So that's we have a two kind of stuff. One is in terms of who's taking care of the DevSecOps, and then second one is where we ensure that if any changes, where it could the change advisory board, which is connected to the our attack surface management. So where we does the complete continuous monitoring of our attack surface management during peak hours also. We do the complete API security monitoring during peak hours also. So we don't do just in terms of static, like it's already load is full, where let's not touch on our environment. Always we do the testing on top of that, the current load what we have at, so that we know the reality, what exactly it's a scalable. At the same time, what are the vulnerabilities which has it, whether it may exploited by the either third parties.
Good. And how your teams get, I would say, adjusted and adapt themselves to that dynamic attack surface, because most of the things are changing, evolving fast?
We have a threat landscapes management team. They are full responsibility. They don't get into any other operations. They are independent team. They take care of threats across the application as well as the infrastructure, at the same time on the third party. Because we found most of the issues, it comes from the third party. Okay. Where we have a lot of integrations, right? So when we are alone, you take a decision, right decision, just like that it goes. When we have more people, then everybody have a different opinion, different thought. The same way, when we have integrations with the multiple applications, the multiple plugins, multiple API coming to the pictures, but the integrations play a very significant role where we need to ensure the security standpoint. So to monitor this all 360 degree, where we have an independent team, we have to ensure that things are taken care, and they don't bother about in terms of the new changes, old changes, or the patches, or whatever it is. Irrespective of all, just we enforce that. If it is a bug, just that is a high most priority which needs to be addressed on that. Okay. That's evolves like in PCI we are PCDSS certified, but still in the PCDSS they say it's like every quarter if you do the assessment, that's well enough. But we don't believe on this quarter assessment. It's like environment is dynamic. Like every day we do the continuous scanning in terms of application infrastructures, and that will help us to ensure that yearly detection and yearly patching. because mistake will happen in all the places. But how soon you detect and then patch will make the huge impact, right?
Interesting. Any other thought from the panelists on that frequency of vulnerability assessment?
I think this is very much important for us to do the vulnerability assessment. Previously, we used to do quarterly, but with the ever-changing DevOps and the new technology changes that are happening currently within our landscape, and the frequency of DDoS attacks also happening, it is always best that we implement a more stringent security tool which will do an assessment, an automated assessment every week, publish the dashboards, and we start resolving those at the start itself. This will reduce the time of our vulnerability assessment and closure of our the VAPTs very easily. So we should start doing that. And DevSecOps is also a methodology by which we can incorporate these changes and as part of the security operations. So from my perspective, this is our views will change in future.
Okay.
We may do it more periodic, more stringent, and reduce the exposure towards the internet or the intranet with respect to vulnerabilities.
Good.
Yeah.
And Mr. Navanitam, you said that you consider third party in your system as a risk as well. What is your thought about SaaS threats as well? Third party.
It's very interesting, right? I mean, we have a lot of SaaS providers as a part of the sponsor. Now, most of us look for a buffet, right? And if you go to the restaurant, we don't like to have a la carte. A la carte always takes time, right? Just look on the menu, what you like, and then what's the name they mention, what you imagine. It may not be the same, what you get it from the kitchen. It may be a different, right? But always we look for the buffet, right? Buffet, just you can go, what you have seen, and then what you like it, you observe. That's what it is. So the SaaS product also same, right? It comes as a ready-made. Now the people from the end user as well as the enterprise, we have a lot of requirement. Whatever you want get things done just immediately. As a DevOps guys, they would have experience, right? All the deployment, it comes as yesterday. They don't give a time to the validations. We cannot put a toll gate also from the security team, like before going deployment, let's ensure that security team does the complete scrutiny, then we move to that. All the things, it comes as an emergency and then it's move on that. So that's one point, the SaaS, it's a ready-made solution, but at the same time, the risk also a little bit higher than what we have built it in-house actually. So let's take maybe X application. If you want to build a X application, maybe the 10 module is required. Out of 10 module, 3 module belongs to the respective company. The rest of 7 module, it belongs to the multiple other company. If you take any, the recently we have 108 unicorn in India. Out of that, 78 companies, they use a third-party API and then SaaS product.
Okay.
Because then only they can scale up, right? Just assemble multiple buckets and then grow on the right directions. So that way, it's a value addition, but at the same time, all the data flows towards them also. So really we are not sure, right? If you have 10 boxes, all the data flow from box 1 to the box 10. Then only I'll get the final output. So when it is propagating, really we are not sure how the data is being handled, how it is stored, how it is processed, what is the purpose of it's being used with their third party. So we have seen a lot of challenges. So moreover, as a CISO standpoint, where we have seen, earlier, if you see the COVID situations, where we are looking, one is, as a CISO, we have to take care of the organization. Second, we have to take care of the employee house environment, because a lot of threats comes from that. And now there's some bigger challenges where we have to do the monitoring of the SaaS product security also. Okay. It is not only on the library, it's like in terms of the attack surface of their infrastructure also, which needs to be monitored, so that if they are protected, our data also in well-secured manner.
By consequence, let's say. Okay. Mr. Saurav, in your world of big banks, let's say, how do you view that banks can now bring more services, more application to that new digital market and try to stay ahead of competition as much as possible, and how they balance security doing so? Because it sounds challenging so far.
Right. Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you, and very happy to be here. So from a BFSI segment, so DevOps has been there for some time now. So DevOps is basically, it's an implementation of the agile methodology that is there, right? So it's basically how you develop and how you put into the various environments in a continuous form. So that's the idea of DevOps. Now that has gone to the next level, which is the DevSecOps, right? So what the idea is basically that the security component gets built from the base, from day one itself, it gets built into the system. So you can, at least the developers can test the security component also very fast. Check very fast, and that if they fail, they can fail fast. So that is the idea of DevSecOps. So from an agile perspective, the applications which are amenable to DevOps can also go into DevSecOps. And it has got multiple benefits. So from a security perspective, you don't have to do multiple AppSecs after each release, right? So that those cycles are reduced, and we get the security component built into the product from day one. Now from a BFSI segment, you have certain areas where these can be amenable. For example, the app development, etc. Some of the all the internet-facing small applications or large applications are amenable to these kind of development cycles. The other cycles, basically the bigger one, the core banking or the loan management system, they usually fall under still the same waterfall model, right? So that has been there, but from a BFSI segment, we see that a lot of changes coming in terms of the small apps or the apps which need to have very fast development times, right? The go-to-market gets reduced. So that is the idea. The idea is to reduce the go-to-market time. So any new idea that the business comes with, you need to deliver fast to the market, and that is where the DevOps come in. So from a security perspective, DevOps, it has got the various environments, right? You have to run through the various environments. You have the development environment, UAT. All of them fall under the same umbrella of the code. It's called the CI/CD, basically, the continuous integration and continuous development. So all the code goes into those environments in synchrony, right? So once you do the dev, it automatically can push it to the other next environment, then to pre-prod, to prod. So you have the same level of the code release or the code management across the environments. So that is the advantage. Now, having said that, the security also comes in. After every release, you have to do a AppSec, right? Application security comes in. So to reduce that, we put the security component in the development cycle itself. So that's the advantage that you're getting in the new methodology. Or it's not new, it's there, but just people, it's an afterthought. Security is always an afterthought, So like the internet also developed, the security was never there. So security came as an afterthought. And see, look how the industry for security has grown, right? So it's like that. So from a banking perspective, so the new applications, the new go-to-market business needs would be definitely on the DevSecOps platform.
Okay, interesting. But that's interesting. But how do you see that now RBI's guidelines on digital payment security controls will affect those kind of balance and speed that the business needs to achieve? I would say that their speed to release new services. What's the impact of those guidelines on DevSecOps operations?
The impact basically is that look. So from a BFSI segment, I'm specifically calling out the BFSI segment, right? So from a BFSI segment, you see that the impact would be that from a go-to-market, it is definitely fast, right? The AppSec cycles would be less in DevSecOps, right? So AppSec cycles, the rigor of the AppSec cycles will be less because the security component is there at the stage one itself. And then once you run it to the dev cycle itself, you are doing the security check also, right? So that is going to have a huge impact in the go-to-market. So we are seeing a go-to-market cycles of like 6 months. That would get reduced to say 3 months, 50%. So those are the advantages that you see.
Okay, so does it imply more control all along the way, or at the beginning or at the end of the rolling out of the application?
No, it is a framework which goes all along, right?
Goes on.
So yeah, so from the base itself it goes, unless you have that rigor or the complete philosophy is behind that. So you have to keep that rigor. That is across all these things and from day one,
Okay.
right from day one.
Good. Thank you for that. Any thought from the panelists on that?
So basically, let's take a step back. DevOps and DevSecOps have their own manifestos, very clearly identified. Okay? One of the most important manifesto is collaboration, right? And collaboration is not only within the security teams, it is collaboration which the manifesto defines that collaboration is between all the stakeholders. It is very important to have all stakeholders part of the entire DevSecOps process. We will always be under pressure to deliver from a business point of view because business keeps pushing for it. But if we have that collaboration going, then the balance can be achieved, number one. Number two is threat modeling. I think we also have to make everybody understand when we are rolling out DevOps or DevSecOps is that adversaries are becoming more and more proactive. Okay? They are always proactive, and that's why, as I agree with Saurav sir, is that we are always kind of reactive, we are behind, we are building products, then the products are getting rolled out, and tools are getting implemented, and so on and so forth, right? So it's time also that we start becoming proactive. So all sprints, at every application layer, it is important to have the DFDs in place, threat modeling in place, identify the risk associated with the application that we are building. It has to be baked into the DevOps complete cycle. And security is not only CISO's perspective or the security engineering team's perspective. Testing is later. But if we have the threat modeling and risk management going within the application, for example, if you are using, let's say, some of the products, frameworks within an application, it is important to identify that these applications, for example, maybe a messaging service, okay, RabbitMQ or anybody, or Kafka, or all of us may be using some of this, right? It is important to understand that there are CVEs which were already available. There's an exposure to it. And then build that model. Third part, just to keep it short, I think we have to look at all the three models. First one is the complete MITRE attack framework when we are building the application, because it starts with identity. Okay. Second one is they have, within the MITRE, they have defend as well. So if you look at and start mapping your application, your threat modeling process becomes super easy and it's not time consuming. And that's the education that we need to impart to all developers as well as all stakeholders. And that is when we will be able to achieve the balance.
Yeah, Lauren, in addition to the both the leaders' input, it is an amazing one. Maybe from the BFS standpoint, in India we have a lot of stringent policies. It's already been there and it is coming. The last 3 years, if you see, it's a huge change and huge transformation in terms of how the government felt like cybersecurity is very important. That should be part of their culture. They're not seeing as a separate action or maybe the task which needs to be embedded as part of their development. That's already risen. And second one is most of the CISOs and CIOs, we have a two mindset, right? The two eyes I can say. One is from the hacker mindset, other one is from the compliance mindset. Like in terms of, as I mentioned, PCDS is maybe most of the organization I can say, maybe who open the target, which is attacked in US 2013. They certified on all the compliance, all the regulations, the NIST, SANS, and all the frameworks they are fulfilled with that. But still they have gone through that, right? Because they had a compliance mindset. They're not on the hacker mindset, right? I mean, as I mentioned, like as a hacker, as he mentioned, like MITRE attack, all the time, just all 360, we have to have a look on the MITRE attack view, how holistically, how people can penetrate, and how I can do the defense mechanisms that play a very significant role.
Sure. Okay, let's move on to another topic with Mr. Kumar. What are your thoughts on the, I would say, big implementation and challenges for DevSecOps when it comes to rolling out a critical application in your industry?
Yes, mainly from a start to end perspective, I'd like to mention, there's always a challenge when implementing a DevSecOps platform to basically a unified DevSecOps. If I consider from my technology landscape, complete technology landscape, and also from a perspective where my small application or a newer application is going live. So we need to have the building blocks already ready first. Second thing which I like to mention is that, and even Mithilesh mentioned now, like mainly four things we need to consider. One is the people, process, technology, and tool. At the start of the implementation of the DevSecOps process itself. People in the sense collaboration is required with the developer, security team, the infrastructure team. They should collaborate. We should be aware of what changes are going on, what things are being worked. Similarly, process change is more important. Technology culture needs to be implemented, wherein an agile methodology should come in place, wherein we track the changes that are happening by the respective teams. We have the cloud security framework ready. We have the governance plan in place. From a deployment perspective, we have the deployment strategy in place. So all these things are the building blocks and the base of, from a perspective of implementing a DevSecOps. The major challenges go from these areas. Technology, the tool selection, the proper tool selection, it should incorporate to all the changes. Tool selection in the sense not only the DevOps CI/CD pipeline build, also the security tools, how it is integrated, how it is going to do and create a framework of securing all our application within our technology landscape. These are the biggest challenges which I foresee that happen normally during all the implementations. It's mainly like an iterative process. We have to do it, maybe review the process, do it, redo it, apply ourselves. Skill set is one of the major issues which we see. During the attrition time, right, we were like in middle of the implementation. We lose our important resource. Very difficult to get resources. So if we have to implement a DevSecOps also, we should all have our boundaries ready. We should have our backup plans ready. These are the challenges which I see we experience during all our implementations. So cross-training, upskilling, this is one of the important challenges we should foresee, implement. That is what we need to understand. One more thing which Mithilesh mentioned was threat. We should be threat detection. How are we going to do that? These all come under the security posture. So the security framework is one of the major building block around which the DevSecOps will be built. That is what I would like to say.
Yeah,
Mostly things are getting covered, yeah, so. Yeah.
That's very interesting that you mentioned skills and people.
Yeah.
I will call up the panelists on that topic as well. What do you think, and is it easy to get those skills now into the DevOps, I would say, movement?
Skills is, as we understand, it is one of the biggest gap as of now, because getting a right skill set and once you get that right skill set, you nurture it, you try and retain it. But at the time of iteration, again, you have to start that entire process again with a new resource coming in. You have to ensure that you imbibe the culture of your organization, go ahead, give you the best effort or the development functionalities, what you want him to build and everything. So yeah, the skill set gap is one of the biggest threat, I would say, as of now that we are.
Okay. Anyone else on that topic of skills for DevSecOps?
Yeah, so again, skills is one of the main areas, and everybody is highlighting that as well, right? The skills is definitely, without the proper skills, you won't be able to deliver it right. So that is definitely one of the main areas of concern for all the IT companies, as well as from a PFSI segment also, we are facing a huge challenge on that part. But thankfully that this cycle is coming down now. Now we see a lot of talents in the market now available with the recent outflow of talents from other companies, right? So we'll see a lot of that stabilizing, and also the market stabilizing from January. So that is the expectation, and we are seeing the positive trends towards that, right? So yeah, we'll get good skill set people definitely. So and it's a learning on the job kind of thing. It's not that you build in day one. So every organization has got a different set of practices to build it, right? Somebody will using some different repository, right? Artifactory, right? So those things are different than how you use the build tools for the DevOps, right? So those are different. Somebody will using Maven, Gradle, so and all those different things are there. Then somebody will be using Puppet, Jenkins. So all those things are different upon which organization is using what version they're using, what kind of things they already have in place, because you can't deviate, right? Suddenly you try to bring something new. That will not be possible. So you need to have that standard thing which is going on. That skill set must be there to support your products and activities for a time that you envisage that you will be in the market, right? So that is important. And of course, you need to have the proper skills. All that skills is kind of a cross-functional thing, basically, because one technology is pretty similar, right? So if you know one, you can always jump into another one. So the concept, if your concept fundamentals are clear, you can always do that. But again, coming back, the main idea is to have a right attitude, right temperament of doing stuff, right? So if the base person, if the absolutely ground level person is not concerned about your organization security, then nobody can do anything. Even those errors will keep on creeping in. And then you have the bugs, and then you have those vulnerabilities, and then you have penetrations, and then so on and so forth. So unless you have that culture, or with the last person, ultimately it's a human element, right? So if the person is not having that temperament or the attitude towards development, towards bringing those cultures in, then it is quite difficult to move forward.
Good.
Yeah, Babila, and just in addition to the Saurav point, maybe what we do is we have a continuous cross-selling as well as upskilling. Irrespective of your department, maybe you are doing somewhere some testing, you want to move to the cyber, you have opportunity. Only thing is, we'll see what is your willpower and what is the roadmap you have it. We will ask him itself, like we don't show him. That itself will come to know like how much they are passionate. And third one is, moreover, just we take a lot of interns who's doing MTech and cybersecurity. It's in India, we have amazing, the opportunities of MTech and cybersecurity. They know the basics and fundamentals. So like once he comes over, it's easy to cook and then get into the field. So we take them 6 months on the internship. That itself, it will show what is their willpower, and then what is their attitude, what is the commitment they have it towards the work. And out of that, just easy to filter and then to the hiring just as soon as possible. It's worked a lot actually. I mean, I can say, I don't want to disclose the salary. As rightly Saurav mentioned, it was hammering. For the 4 years guys, where we have given very bigger digits of salary, and where the freshers, who was onboarded, and he was getting less than 10 lakhs. And the work, what is the balance? 4 years and then freshers. Freshers is doing beyond what the 4 years guys was doing. Because the 4 years guys is amazing skill, but the willpower is not so great as the guy, the freshers, what he does. So that's why we strongly believe, take the freshers, train them. That's like a one set of forces. It should be, keep them ready, like for the army. So that also works a lot for us.
Okay, get that. Next question to Mr. Dhiraj. What's your view and experience on protecting, I would say, critical applications when they are spread across different environments, and how your DevOps, or you make sure that your DevOps are complying with the security along the development cycle?
So my friend here, Kumar, has highlighted one of the critical pointers. When you start building DevOps or any such framework, so there are four important points to notice. One is the people, process, technology and tools. So I'll break that question into all these four sections. So one is the people. So when I talk about people, and we are talking about security in general in this concept, so security is everybody's responsibility. So it's not a individual like CISO or any other security guy who it's their responsibility. It is everybody's responsibility. Everybody has to pay equal attention and equal effort in terms of achieving the required security. So that's about the people, and of course the collaboration in terms of interesting, or rather imbibing that culture from top to down. It is very important. So in case you are trying to build a DevSecOps or a DevOps, it has to be first of all agreed and approved by your senior management, and that enforcement should come from top to down. Because in case if it's just going from bottom to up, it won't maybe as fruitful as you want to be. So I believe that's one of the other point. Second is process. So in terms of process, what I believe is, there are many business wings for any of the organizations that we are working. And every other operation or the IT support for that operation, they works in their own silos at times. So how they're handling their release, are they, separate or shadow IT function that is running and releasing the production directly and without knowing. So I believe these are the kind of threats or gaps that you have to identify first in your process. Try and, address those gaps first in your process, and then you push it as a framework. That framework could be, as the next 2 points would be part of a technology and tools. But you have to ensure that your process is so, strict, or rather so bulletproof kind of thing, so that these kind of gaps are addressed right before you start. The next is a technology. I believe I don't have to, put more light on technology, because we all are very tech savvy in terms of DevSecOps, because everybody has probably been through that journey and they know that what are the best tools that you have to use, and of course same goes for the tools also. But there are a few other points that I would like to add. One is the automation. So, when you go and implement DevOps or DevSecOps, the automation, you have to ensure that you build in automation wherever possible. The reason you have to build in automation, other automation not only for, achieving a certain functionality, but I'm saying same for the security as well. The reason being is the developers at their mindset, they know is that they have to deliver. They have to deliver certain functionality, they have to complete a code. But there are few things that developer may or may not miss, is that there are some hard-coded, secrets which are there in the code, which they don't know. So in terms of automation, like you have some security tool or source code analyzer tools which are automated in part of your CI/CD pipeline. So it will identify those and address it right there and there itself, rather than it moves to the production and then you do the assessment and then it identifies, right? So these are the points. So automation is another critical aspects when you implement DevSecOps. The third is the training. So developer is, again, as I said, is focused on delivering something. But unless and until you don't give him those required training, don't make him aware for the current threat landscape or the current vulnerabilities are there, the current attacks which are happening, how are they happening, you don't make sure that they take enough participation, enough understanding, then I believe we are just running as a tick in the checkbox for the DevSecOps. If your developers are not well aware, and they are not taking that enough participation and addressing and understanding the code that they have to implement when it comes to the security. So I believe these are the points which we have to keep in mind when you at least go for DevSecOps and go for your critical application, which might be internet facing, public facing, customer facing. So those are the points here.
Okay, and let me ask one controversial question. You mentioned culture, process, people, tools and technology into the DevOps culture. Which one or which are the two ones that you would put in first?
As I said, I believe I started as a developer, so in our post-graduation it was told to us, or it was hard-coded in our mind as before you write a single line of code, you should know that there is SDLC, you have to process. It's a process. So you have to ensure you go by process, you go by step before you write a single line of code. So your information gathering, everything, these are your part of your process. So you ensure that you follow them and then go, start your first line of code. Then you will be more effective. You will be deliver at a faster rate. So I believe the same, thought process goes to this also. So people and process are, I believe, will always remain at the...
Good. Okay, thank you. Thank you. So just to kind of go on this one, Mr. Mitish, what's your view on adoption of DevSecOps and automation throughout, I would say, the industry?
I think automation is needed. Okay, but prior to that, I think, as Dheeraj rightly said, training and probably continuous learning is needed. If we have developers who are learning, understand the importance of DevSecOps within the entire process, automation becomes the easier task of it. What is happening is, in the environment or ecosystem today, is that things are rapidly changing. I'll give you one example, and I'll take a couple of minutes here. We all know OpenAI, right? Last week, they released a chat, right? Chat on GP3 algorithm and so on and so forth. And it's very interesting that now you just paste the code there, it will tell you the vulnerabilities. Okay? So, bug bounty guys who are behind bug bounty, they will immediately go and you go to OpenAI, open an account, go to the chat, put the code, it will tell you where the vulnerabilities are, and it will explain the vulnerability, how it is, right? Some of the features that it has is interesting, that it will help you paste the Java code and it will tell you, and it will give you a Python code out. Okay? It's very interesting. Actually, we all should see that. And that's where the continuous learning process comes into picture. And while automation is important, not everything can be automated. Okay? DevSecOps, one of the manifestos, I keep coming back to manifestos because that's the fundamental of DevSecOps. And there are about 7 line items there. One of the most thing is red teaming. Okay? It is there. Collaboration is there. Continuous monitoring is there. Sharing threat intelligence is there. Okay? So these are some of the line items. Part of it only can be automated. Okay? Not everything can be automated. Because at the end of the day, if anybody can do red teaming without a manual intervention, okay, without manually writing scripts, then that's the tool which is already doing the job. And you can have a tool. That's where automation doesn't work. Okay. Number 2 is continuous monitoring. Okay. When we look at continuous monitoring, at the end of the day, we'll be flooded with so many false positives, right? Out of that, typically, if you actually look at it on your SOC, SIM, or whatever platforms that you use, there'll be 65 to 70 odd real alerts that you will have to investigate. So that part can be automated. That I can remove false positives. But reaching false positives, And optimizing your platforms, monitoring platforms is essential basis your threat modeling, basis your attack surface. If you know what is needed and what you carry within your infrastructure, okay, then those things can be automated. Third part, in DevSecOps, the most important thing, everything is a code. Code, what developers write, configuration of your platforms, routers, firewalls, any tools that you use is also a code in today's world, right? And all of this put together is where we need automation in place. Right? It's a consolidated, like Navneetan said, it's 360-degree view that is important from an automation standpoint as well. You can't just automate one process and say, I have automated it. It doesn't work. So that's what I feel.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's have one question and one, let's say, kind of advice for the audience. If the audience wants to have the DevSecOps practice successful in their organization, what kind of changes would they have to do to make it successful? Because I'm pretty sure you went through different changes to have those practices deployed and successful.
Yeah. So from a change management perspective, right, to bring in this kind of a process in place, DevSecOps as a methodology or as a development methodology going forward to any organization, the changes would be definitely like the mindset of the people who will be doing this, because if they are doing continuous waterfall kind of development, suddenly they're being asked to do agile or a DevOps kind of environment, then there's a complete mindset change, right? So that's very important. So that's part of the continuous learning and continuous evolvement of oneself, right? So because that's going to be happening, the development cycles are coming down, and DevOps would definitely help in doing that. All businesses have got huge pressures in delivering, and this would definitely help in reducing those cycles. So to me, Agile or the Scrum, one of the methodologies in Agile is Scrum, right? So to me, Scrum is like waterfall in sprints, okay? So if you look at that way, it is basically a waterfall in sprints. So the mindset needs to be changing along with that, and then from an organizational change perspective, the various, again, it's a continuous process, and it cannot be done in a day. So it has to be evolved over a period of time. So start small, and then we can take the next steps, right? That's how it is, and then that's how the organizations have also done it that way only.
Yeah, maybe in addition to Saurabh's points. See, most of the time, just we take it as incident, we convert it into the change management. If any incident happen, any event happen, we convert, analyze, and we look for just what is the room for improvement in terms of the change. So always we connect, the incident management driven towards the change. The change will connect it to the, the improvement. So that's a way where we'll be, keep moving. Coming back to our DevOps standpoint, always the change is a bigger challenge, because every day is a change. It's not just, this other way, right? In terms of number of Jira tickets they go through per day, per week, it is a huge, not like, the other team standpoint. But in terms of how we make it as a continuous, and then how we drive this entire, the process in an automated way, that will help a lot actually. Because the people don't feel we are doing manually, look for somebody's approval, wait for the approval, follow up. No, it's not that way, right? It's like auto-triggered, the email or maybe the alert. It will be keep going, keep approving, keep reviewing, and things will on the, the right track. That will be taken as very light way. That will help on, both the development team as well as the security team to have a wonderful, secure organization.
Good. Mr. Kumar, you on that?
Yes, I would like to add that whenever we whenever we start a DevSecOps journey, we should have a learning curve to start with. That is, we should educate our developers and our team, infrastructure guys, and with what are we planning, what is our roadmap, how are things going to come into place. That visualization and realization among the team has to start. Then only our journey can begin. Somewhere down the line, we will get matured. So like agile methodology, that is what we prefer whenever we implement DevOps or the DevSecOps platforms. So we have to start that at a ground level, educate people, learn, make the learnings for them, bringing experts who will know how the journey will look like, make them realize. Once the realization starts, things will automatically go into place. It's a very, very patient journey. There will be a lot of hiccups. There will be a lot of challenges. There will be pushback from your existing team to come into place, to do the things the right way. But we have to get it done by making a self-realization for them.
Good.
That is what I think that will be the change I will suggest to be implemented to start with a DevSecOps journey.
Okay. Good. So to the audience, it's a journey. It's not a destination. It could have bumps, humps, but let's keep moving on that journey. So thank you, the panelists, for staying with me and answering those questions. I hope that was useful to the audience.